Welcome to the ride. I had a frustration, and this was a somewhat common frustration on the consumer tennis market, that 18x20 rackets very often seem to be unnecessarily heavy. And I don't just mean static weight, I mean swing weight. Of course, in that short, a lot of people were quick to say that's because 18x20s have more strings and therefore a higher swing weight. Well, the amount of strings that an 18x20 has does not account for how big the swing weight difference generally is. So I have a few things to say, and part of what I have to say points the finger a little bit at Tennis Warehouse. But let's get into my frustration first. For a long time, I felt that 1820s are stereotyped as being a more advanced player's racket. And I'm not saying that it's not, but I felt like some of that stereotype was perpetuated by the fact that 18x20 rackets generally have a way higher swing weight, and a higher swing weight is going to limit the audience to a more high-level player. That's just what happens. By making an 18x20 racket heavier, especially in terms of swing weight, you're limiting all the benefits or differences of an 18x20 string pattern to only be accessible to the more advanced players. That's why it frustrated me. Anyway, I had somewhat of an epiphany, a realization recently while doing my research and hitting with every single racket in the Yonex Percept lineup, for which I have many good things to say, by the way. Anyway, it was hitting with the Percept 97D that something about why 18x20 rackets are heavier might actually be for a good reason. Not just because of the stereotype, and not just because... So rude of you to interrupt me. I'm on my way to San Jose to pick up my friend Ace, who you've seen in some of my videos if you are a regular watcher of this channel, from Italy. I guess I should mute that since I'm recording while driving. All right, navigation voice. Don't take it personally, but I am shutting you up. Anyway, my epiphany with the 97D Percept. I had wondered for the longest time, is there a good reason that 18x20 rackets are heavier? Because I know for a fact it's not the few extra strings that often make a swing weight difference of 10 or more units compared to the MP version or the team version or whatever it is of the racket in that same lineup that is not the 18x20 model. Here is the epiphany and how I discovered it. I like to hit with a lot of topspin, and for a long time I was looking for 18x20s that were really spin friendly because I want that density, mostly for string breaking reasons, and I felt like the right 18x20 wouldn't be too much of a sacrifice in terms of topspin. So I always try to maximize my topspin hitting with 18x20s, even though that might seem counterintuitive to some people. I wanted the best of both worlds, and I figured it might be possible. Especially with strings that I hit with now, Restring Zero and Tourline Wasabi, they offer so much snapback and topspin, I really felt like it would open up the spin potential of an 18x20, enough so that most people wouldn't notice the difference in terms of the spin potential. Which is kind of true, long story short, but those same strings in a more open string pattern with a spin-friendly racket, still probably going to outperform the 18x20 equivalent. Anyway, as I was hitting with the Percept 97D, I tried to force really, really heavy topspin balls, and I gotta say, for an 18x20, especially that kind of 18x20, it's actually pretty spin-friendly for the type of racket that it is. And I felt that way even though my demo was strung with Hyper G16 in an 18x20, which I do not think is the way to go. But I put Wasabi X in there, which is a 17 gauge string, very spin-friendly. It's round, but very spin-friendly. Trying to force a heavy topspin ball goes against what that racket's designed to do a little bit. And if you're really trying to cooperate with what that racket wants to do, it's a little bit better at hitting through the ball, through the court. Heavy, deep shots with a decent amount of topspin, but that wouldn't be like a highlighted characteristic of this racket. And the more that I adjusted to hitting through the court and accepting the kind of racket that it was and playing to its strengths instead of trying to make it play in a way that it's not necessarily specialized to play, that's when my realization kicked in. 18x20s are never going to be as spin friendly as the more open 16x19s. You might be able to find some exceptions, but let's not talk about the exceptions. I'll phrase it a different way. A 16x19 and an 18x20 of the same racket lineup, the 16x19 will almost always outperform the 18x20 in terms of spin potential. Maybe you'll find an exception out there, but let's just agree to that for the sake of the point that I realized, okay? And so if that's true, it's better for you to be the type of player to hit through the court, through the ball, using an 18x20 racket. And if that's how you're playing, it would absolutely make more sense for the racket to have more mass and a higher swing weight to go through the ball. And that's when it clicked for me, because I was starting to think, I really like this racket, but I wish I could take a little swing weight out so it was a little bit more whippy and I can get a little bit more spin. But here's the reality. Even if I did that, that 18 by 20 racket will still not be as spin friendly as it would be if it were a 16 by 19. It just wouldn't be. So in some regards, what is the point of taking that weight out so it can be more whippy and spin friendly when the string pattern is inherently less spin friendly? So my point really is that 18 by 20 rackets, just from the string pattern alone, are better designed for hitting through the ball and through the court. And I think a racket that is a little bit heavier in swing weight but also static weight is going to complement that. And therefore it makes sense that 18 by 20 rackets would on average have a higher swing weight by design, not by coincidence of having more strings, but by design have a higher swing weight than 16 by 19 rackets. And at least for now, that's the best reason that I can think of why that should be the case. And to further elaborate on my point a little bit, I will say that rackets that are designed to be more spin friendly are better off being more whippy, because not only the swing path that you want to create should be a little bit more loopy, but making contact with a swing path like that, you make contact in a more brushy way. You're brushing over the ball. You're not really hitting through the ball quite as much. It's a different kind of shot. So what I'm saying is a racket that is designed to be spin friendly is better off being a little bit more whippy, because that's the type of ball you're trying to hit. So there it is. That is my point. However, remember earlier when I said there is a role in this that Tennis Warehouse plays? As I said, Tennis Warehouse is a major source of information regarding specs and so on of rackets. Pretty much everybody will go to tenniswarehouse.com, look at a racket and maybe compare, or at least just look at the specs of the racket. Now here's a question. It's a rhetorical question, kind of. But from what I understand, generally, and I've talked to Tennis Warehouse about this, depending on who you talk to, you might get a different answer slightly, but the way in which they measure their rackets, especially when it comes to balance and swing weight, etc., they always measure those things based on the strung specs. Now you can get measurements that are the unstrung measurements for things like weight and balance because those specs are written on the racket. Now with most brands, quality control, or tolerance control as I prefer to call it, will cause those numbers to vary a little bit. So Tennis Warehouse actually presents an average of the strung specs. So what they generally do is they will measure from a pile of 6 rackets, all strung with the same string, same tension, to give you an average of swing weight and balance strung. So here's what frustrates me a little bit, because I don't understand why they don't publish an average of the unstrung specs as well as an average of the strung specs. But let me elaborate. First, let me charge my car. Tennis Warehouse only publishes the strung swing weight and balance, but they don't tell you what string they used. And they don't always use the same string for every single racket. Now, I'm sure Tennis Warehouse has maybe thought about this, but ultimately decided that would just be too much information for most people. And I guess I agree with that. If I was running Tennis Warehouse, I would feel like, I don't know if most people would care. It might just raise more questions. And most people are maybe going to care more about what the strung swing weight is because they're going to string it themselves. And that's what the relevant swing weight would be maybe. But again, not everybody's going to be stringing it with the same string. And whether you're using polyester or multi-filament, the differences in weight between those two strings in an 18 by 20 could be like almost 10 units of swing weight in difference. And if you're using a polyester string, I would say that every single gauge size that you go up can make the swing weight vary by about 3 to 5 units. So when I look at published swing weight numbers that are an average of strung rackets, I don't even know how seriously to take it because I don't know what string they put in there. Did they put polyester in or did they put multi-filament in? And what gauge did they use? But also, what was the unstrung swing weight? Like how much swing weight did stringing the racket add? So we don't really have any of that information. And the reason that this frustrates me is because Tennis Warehouse gets these rackets unstrung. Why don't you guys just throw it in? It'd be almost no extra work to also measure the rackets before you string them. You guys see my point there? And that way we could have both or all of the information. So yeah. Why doesn't Tennis Warehouse do that? And wouldn't it be nice if they did? And if they did do that, people could clearly see how much swing weight difference there is between a 16 by 19 and an 18 by 20 just from stringing the racket. They could see that. And they could put it into context, especially if they also mention what string they strung the racket with. Anyway, that's all I got to say about 18 by 20s and why they tend to be higher in swing weight. I hope you guys appreciated the content, and I hope you guys appreciated coming along for the ride. The time of year is getting a little bit cooler and a little bit less sunny, so I took my sunroof covers off. And I suppose this will be the view for now until scorching hot summers are back. If you guys want to support the channel, you can obviously like and subscribe, comment. If you want to go the extra mile, you can use my links down below to get discounts on my favorite strings. Yes, they are my favorite strings. I do not just represent them because I get a small commission on them. I would not set up such a partnership just to get a little commission. I would only do that if I genuinely love the strings and think they are actually the best, which I believe they are, which means I can fully, confidently tell you that. So check out my links below to get 10% off a Restring Zero and 20% off of anything Toraline. And if you guys want to learn more about both strings, check out my video breaking down the differences between Restring and Toraline. You guys can also buy me a coffee. There's a link to do that. And if you do that, I will shout you guys out in one of my upcoming videos. I'll also send you an email letting you know which video has the shout out for you. There's a few other links down below, but I'll let you check it out if you're interested. And thank you guys so much for watching. You can also follow me on Instagram at Time for Tennis, just like you see it on my YouTube. I'm pretty responsive to DMs there. Bye for now, waving with my one glove on. If you're a true fan, you know why I wear one glove. All right, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.